I just interviewed Sally Yates last week, and they've been looking at it. Of course they have. The Justice Department has to look at these things just the way they did in previous years for other companies. And so this is not something new. He's correct in that, what he said there. And that's obviously, it'll be interesting to see what level regulation will play into this, what will be regulation or antitrust, or some other actions by state and federal and local governments.
How politically dangerous would it be? Because for all the talk about how big these companies are and how potentially dangerous the companies are, customer satisfaction for Apple, for Amazon in particular, really high. And so they could
also,
really
there's
push back.
proof. Amazon is just 1% of retail. I mean, this is all political, really. And I had a really interesting talk with Makem Delrahim, who is the antitrust, very intelligent guy, really terrific. I think even he didn't think that was a case. It would be a very difficult case, but it's something that people need to look at. What is the regulation? What's the smart regulation? And I don't think we're going to see that in this statement. This is just someone throwing out another bomb.
But is there any way to discount, given what we have, which of the three would be most at risk?
They passed on Google many years ago. I mean, you can look at it. You could look at probably Google and Facebook and Amazon would be most at risk of them. And I think in order, probably Google would be at the top of that list if you were going to do that.
Do you think these companies themselves see themselves as overdue for regulation? I mean, their importance in elections, their importance in marketing and privacy, the way that they infiltrate every detail of our lives.
Yeah, I think they know it. I know that it's coming. I think privacy regulation would be interesting. I think there's some others around data portability and things like that. I think you'll probably see that from this next Congress if the Democrats win. Democrats are, I've interviewed lots of them, are very much out for doing something about this now, which is kind of funny because they were the friends of tech.
I was going to say, I saw some fundraising numbers.
Yeah.
Google for the left it's crazy.
Yeah, I know, but it's funny how a Russian situation can hurt a relationship. So I don't know. I think there's a feeling that something has to be done, and the question of what to do and how to make sure we don't even favor too much regulation will favor the big companies. And so you have to think really hard of what creates a startup innovation. And that's something that the Trump administration or Congress or anyone is thinking about is how do we keep innovation going given the challenges from China? And so the rest of this is just political and a little bit silly when we have to think about how we create the next generation of tech.
While we're talking about potential regulation, Europe's doing it.
Yes.
Marguerite Vestager is actually pursuing these cases very specifically. It seems like there's very little chance of the U.S. getting ahead of Europe. So is all of this talk kind of talk? Is the action really in Europe primarily, and then it's up to the U.S. to perhaps catch up?
Well, look what's happening in California. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff around the states, around Massachusetts, New York, California. And if as it turns out, Gavin Newsom becomes governor, he's almost governor of a country, right? So you could think about the economy there, the kind of things they're passing in California, and things he and I have talked about around employment, around self-driving. I think you're going to see a lot of hopefully innovative legislation there. And maybe it's a template for what happens around the country and federally.
John's going to move you on to Elon Musk in a moment, but on Amazon, as we look at shares there, your thoughts on the search at this stage?
I think it's just a circus, but I'm glad you're enjoying covering it.
I know, but you've always...
I think they'll probably be in Virginia. I thought they were always going to be in Virginia. He has a nice house there, not just because of his house, but it makes sense to go there, to be there. It's a great area. Crystal City is an interesting place. It's sort of a here nor there place. It seems like if you're going to pick somewhere, I would probably put Crystal City first. Dallas is also a great option. I didn't ever think they were going to locate in any state that was problematic from a social point of view, all those things. I thought maybe Pittsburgh was an option. So I don't know. I don't know where he's going to go. But probably, I'm thinking Virginia's got to be it. I think that's probably the case.
All right, moving on to your interview with Elon Musk. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO sat down with you last week for nearly 90 minutes, covering everything from Twitter to space travel. Here's Musk talking about the benefits of going private, which he's not going to do.
I think we will be cash flow positive for all quarters going forward.
All quarters going forward. So
Yes.
Do you need more investment?
No.
Not at all.
I don't think so.
Do you need to go private? Are you still contemplating that?
We don't need to go private. I think going private would, I think we could execute better if we were private.
Lots of gold in this interview,
Thank you.
Kara. I don't need to flatter you, but I will anyway.
Please do.
But one line really jumped out at me from this is when he said there wasn't some other way to do this about his hellish past year
Yeah.
seem to underscore the idea he's not going to look for another CEO. He's arguing he's got it under control now, not working 120-hour weeks, now back to 80, 90. Is that what investors should sort of take away? Is this is an Elon Musk who at least says he's recalibrated?
Well, he was calmer, I have to say. I've known him for 20 years. I mean, he was definitely back to the way I'd known him. And so I think he working 120 hours a week and stuff like that, he shouldn't have done that. Like, first of all, it's not good. But he felt that, you know, if you saw that line, Tesla cannot die, and it almost died, essentially, that's how he thinks about it. He has it's almost a religious point of view towards the company. And he feels that Tesla becoming an important company is important to the fate of human race. That's what he essentially was saying, because of climate change and everything else. And so, and he's kind of right. The things he's taking on, space, transportation, they're big topics. And so, you know, he seemed like he's got it back together, but we'll see. You know, you never know with Elon. You never know. And he's still not going to stop tweeting, it looks like. And we talked about that. And he's got the Boring Company. He's got the space thing. He has a boat in the ocean that he catches nose cones. He hasn't successfully caught a nose cone yet with a giant net. I mean, he's got a lot of ambition.
So knowing him as well as you do, what surprised you out of that 90 minutes? Anything?
No, I just like that he's obstreperous. He pushed back at me a bunch, and he's very funny. The dad jokes were a surprise. I hadn't heard him do dad jokes in a long time. You know, he was Elon. He can go lots of ways, and I think he's so creative and interesting. And I know there's all kinds of problems that short sellers have with him and everything else, but I like a person that's going to take a big swing, and that's what he's doing, and people know that.
How is he seeing regulation for Tesla? How is he factoring that into his plans for the future?
He was pretty positive about states and federal. It's moving in the right direction. He seemed really positive about that. That was the surprise. I thought he'd slap back at the government, but he didn't. I think he feels good about their relations and the legislation moving forward all over the world. And he did talk about how China, again, was moving faster in those kind of regulations, and it was more coordinated between the state and federal officials. But he didn't seem to think that was a big factor.
But profitable,
Yes.
cash flow positive,
Cash flow positive.
meeting their weekly targets.
Yeah.
Do you think he's reached some kind of critical mass in fighting back detractors?
I don't know. I think he'll have detractors his whole life. He's biting off big things and hitting hard industries. I think he likes it, and I think that's his way. It's interesting. The space stuff was fascinating.
But does he see it as a problem if it's the SEC that's his distractor?
Well, he paid his bill. He did his tweet, $20 million tweet. I don't know. I just love covering him. I can tell you that.